I know we welcome to the Element Well Studios, Jeff Good, president of Mangia Bene Restaurant Management Group. Jeff, good to have you on the program.
You know, you say that better than anyone else.
No way.
I'm telling you, nobody can say Mangia Bene, and you just said it.
You're supposed to have a little different accent.
You're well-traveled, Gerard. You're well-traveled.
Well,
that is Italian for good eating.
Correct.
So
yeah.
There you go.
Well, I have Italian heritage in my background, so I don't know. But I don't speak the language. My father did and was pretty fluent in it. And
did his father come overseas, or how do you trace back?
On his mother's side, sure did. His name was Mangia, by the way.
Say no more.
Yeah, in New Orleans. My father, born and raised, and grew up in New Orleans before he moved to Mississippi in the early 50s, but still had very strong. And we did the whole DNA and ancestry check, and it's Portugal. Gilbert is actually a Portuguese name, we learned. Yeah. But on his mother's side, it's Mangia, which is pretty unmistakable for. That's Palermo is where the family hailed from. So my great-grandfather was compelled to go into the seminary, which is the way it worked back then. You're going to go be a Catholic priest, right? You just went off. But he didn't want to, but the good news is that was your ticket to getting an education. And a lot of folks, of course, weren't able to go to college, and so he got an education, spoke a number of languages as a result, came over to this country, escaped the seminary essentially, like some of them did, just got on a boat and immigrated over and set up shop in New Orleans there. But we didn't want to talk about my heritage.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome here on Jeff Good's Hour, and it's what you didn't know about your host.
Well, we got time. We're so glad to have you. You, of course, are a very highly respected and successful restaurateur, entrepreneur. You're well known. Your operations are fantastic. I have been a frequent patron, both inside and also, you've catered lots of events at my house, and we're always fantastic.
Yeah. Avon does a great job, doesn't he?
Fantastic.
Best in the business.
Food is great. The service is great. Everything's fantastic, and sure we'll continue to patronize. So appreciate that. But it's kind of hard to operate when you don't have good water. What about that?
Yeah, it is. So thanks for having me out. And my partner and I have been at this now for a little over 28 years, so almost 29 years. April will be 29 years for Bravo. And I remember years ago, the first time there was a water main break that happened that took down the neighborhood around Bravo, Highland Village. This was 20 years ago, and it was a momentous moment, and the press was going crazy, and we had we had a cadre of folks that reached out to us and did some shots in the restaurant just about how unique this was to have to operate under a boil water notice. Fast forward 20 years, and unfortunately, we're too good at this. I was talking to my manager just before coming over here, Katie Leach, over at Broad Street, and we could do this blindfolded because the frequency of the boil water situation is just so it's so often that our practices, we keep supplies in the storage room. We have an off-site storage room that we keep things in. We have the vendor relationships to bring the products in. So when we get the notice, we go into battle mode. Now, that's how I survive. And restaurateurs, we're scrappy folks. We can take two nickels, rub them together, and make a quarter. That's the joke in our industry because we need to. It's a low margin, high stress environment. Our problem here in Jackson is that the overall infrastructure, as we all know, is in incredibly damaged condition. It's a 100-year-old core city, and the combination of Yazoo clay, lack of maintenance, and other things have led to a lot of water main breaks, things like that. That's part of our life and is going to be that for the rest of our lives. We're going to have water main breaks. And Gerard, water main breaks are not a big deal because when a line breaks, you lose pressure. And so the reason you go into boil water is when you lose pressure, much like a hose in the yard, if you turn your hose off, water will suck back a little bit, the vacuum. That's what happens when you lose pressure in a water system. So the pipes suck groundwater in, and that's where you can get contaminants. Yeah. So they want to, A, don't drink the water. B, fix the breaks. So turn off the water. They put in within 24 hours. The city of Jackson does an amazing job of fixing line breaks. And then 1, 2, 3 days after the line break, they'll flush the water, they'll run tests, and they'll clear the water, and we go again. That's part of life. And it happens once in a while, maybe every 6, 9, 12 months, and that stinks. But that's a lot better than a citywide boil water notice where the plant at the Ross Barnett Reservoir fails. And that we've seen it fail over the past decade for pumps going down, electrical fire, misdosing of chemicals, freezing of the membranes during the freeze, and right now because of turbidity levels, which have to do with the chemical process, etc. Yeah. But a citywide boil water notice means that every single connection on the city cannot drink their water. We do not have potable water. And this is going on and on and on, and there's a huge amount of finger pointing, and it's difficult in our city oftentimes to get to the root of what things are and to move forward. And what worries restaurants are simply saying is this. We had 46 of us stand up yesterday, presented a letter to the city, county, and state, and simply said this. It's a crisis. It's a public health crisis. Somebody is going to get hurt here. In other communities, it's taken dysentery or cholera to come forth before somebody, does something. Whatever is happening between the EPA, the state, the county, and the city, politics, money, processes, all of those things, everything plays a part. Regulation, what does it take to get everyone at the table to do their part to figure this out? And it isn't always about money. So it's not just about the state, a lot of Jacksonians say the state needs to give us more money. That's not always, the answer is, what do we need to do to band resources together to solve this problem once and for all? Because, my God, the state Capitol is here, and all the state offices are here. And while you and I are talking, and I'm drinking my SuperTalk water here, folks are downtown at the Sillers Building doing the same thing.
Yeah. So how long has the city been under a boil water alert notice?
The current one started Friday night at 7:30 when the State Department of Health sounded the alarm because the turbidity levels at the plant exceeded the levels, and so they put in the boil water. This comes on the heels of the one that was the third week of June, which lasted 2 weeks, which was for a mechanical failure and then the turbidity level.
2 weeks, yeah.
And turbidity just means the solids in the water. The filtration chemical process is releasing more solids than it's supposed to.
Okay.
And solids can carry bacteria.
And as we know, there are a lot of folks who live within the city limits that rely on the city's water. Yeah.
Looking at one right here.
But it's fair to say, though, Jeff, you can sort of afford to deal with it. There are a lot of people that can't. And I'm just saying
so
that.
The unfortunate thing is my wife goes to Costco, and we give our money to Madison County to get all the water we can to come in here. But there's the least of us in the city constantly are hammered with the ills of being a poor city. I mean, it is hard to be a poor city. And the work that I've always tried to do in the marketplace is trying to be sensitive to my place and my privilege, and being able to try to do what I think is good for the greater good.
No doubt, you have.
I'm highly concerned about the economics for my industry, and after really spending a week, I was very frustrated Friday night. It's 1:30 at night. We had not gotten any notice from the city. There was a communication issue. I learned out from customers and social media we're on a boil water notice. And it was 1:30 at night. I wrote a Facebook post, which is very unlike me to do something frustrated. But from that moment to today, I've had dozens of conversations, and I know of a few restaurants that are not going to re-sign their leases.
Right.
And we don't own our business. So one of the most important things to understand about restaurants is we don't own our property. Very few restaurants own their building.
Sure.
So when it comes time to renew your lease, you look forward and you say, what's the market look like? What's the potential, et cetera? Well, there's this whole new thing. How many days am I going to be closed? Because last year, Gerard, I was closed 21 days at Salamuki's and 21 days at Broad Street in February. 21 days we were closed. How I held on to my employees is my secret sauce. how I do these things, how I made it through COVID, how I engage and how I lead, guide, and direct, how I keep the trains running. But I'm exhausted. I'm 58.
Let's
tired.
You got time to hang around?
Yeah,
we'll continue this conversation after the break. We've got Jeff Good, president of Mangia, Bene. Restaurant Management Group operates several restaurants in the city of Jackson and outside as well. But we'll come right back. Studios with Jeff Good, president of Mangia, Bene, a restaurateur, successful entrepreneur, a great Jacksonian and businessman. Appreciate you coming in, Jeff. So before we went to break, you were discussing something that I guess I identified with, having been an entrepreneur and built business plans and investment memos and financial models and projections. You know all that stuff that finance people want to have,
Yep.
believe it or not.
Yep.
I cannot comprehend building in the contingency in a restaurant of not having water. That seems insane. You just don't know when it could happen. The extent and the degree to which it could affect you and how long it could endure. How do you build that into a business plan?
It's like all the insurance agents that called us 30 years ago when they were talking about the New Madrid fault and we all needed earthquake insurance, right? So fool me once, pity on you, fool me twice, pity on me. So again, the frequency and the severity of this has led us, my partner and I, to do a lot of disaster planning, and part of that is insurance. So we are large enough, Bravo, Broad Street, Salamukis, and our ability to negotiate, contracts. When we have done our property and casualty renewals, we always make sure that we have business interruption insurance as part of our coverage. We had a restaurant meeting. About 40 restaurateurs came together a week ago to have this discussion, and during that meeting, I made a small pitch that everybody make a note of this. And 3 of the restaurateurs came up and said, I've never even heard of such coverage before. And I said, this is something you need to know. So what we do is we plan ahead by saying, okay, we have an insurance piece that's going to allow us to be protected if something happens. Now, what does that mean? There's always the argument about cause and effect and all that. But, for instance, going into those 21-day shutdowns and keeping employees for 21 days, how do you keep an employee in the restaurant business when you are closed? There's only so much cleaning you can do and so much you can afford. Being prepared, because I did the work ahead of time, when the crisis hit, I was able to, with both feet planted on the ground, say, all right, this is what I can afford to do and what I'm going to try to do with these employees and how I'm going to keep them engaged and what I'm going to do so I can make sure when we reopen, whenever that is, because we didn't know. Yeah. And if I was in South Jackson, it was 6 weeks before they got water in South Jackson. Then I can re-engage. So thank you for shaking your head. But one of the things I've learned being in the restaurant business is it's all of that and more. So we're retail, so we're business. And we're retail, so customer service and engagement, hours, we're open all the time. And then we're manufacturing. Oh, to be a retail store where I just take things out of a box, put it on a shelf, and then you come up and I say, can I help you look at that? We have to start making what you want before you ever came in. We start with prep items. We start getting things ready. Then you come in and order. You're sitting down at Bravo and you say, I want to have this, the flank steak salad. And so now it's time to assemble that and then deliver it to you. And then tomorrow we start all over again. It's a lot. And that's, I've got so much respect for my brothers and sisters in the industry because we do what we do because we love it. And all of us in Jackson just want the same thing that, other more secure communities have, which is the knowledge that some of the challenges that come from the outside can be quelled. We just don't want to deal with constant trauma. I think my therapist thinks I've got PTSD at this point. I mean, I don't know.
All right. So you said that you and a number of your peers,
yes,
penned a letter, drafted a letter.
Yes, we did.
Right. Sent it to state and local.
City, county, and state.
Okay. City, county, state.
Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Speaker of the House, Board of Supervisors, City Council, and Mayor. And the letter is very simple, and it's publicized. You can find it online. I need to put it up on my Facebook page if I haven't yet. But it is a very clear storytelling of how much pain we're in, how difficult it is to do what we're doing, and a call to action that regardless of what process and procedures and financial issues or politics or command and control, who is in control of what function, all of these things, if a blue ribbon committee, if a partnership, if folks can just come together around one table, like your round table here. I mean, if these seats were filled up with the folks that have the positions of power to make decisions, maybe a pathway could be open. But everyone would have to come to that table vulnerable.
You need the brain trust and the decision makers, folks with authority.
And it starts with our city. We are the ones that need to be able to interface. And I'm praying that the administration, the city administration, can find a path to be able to reach out and get to yes.
Okay.
It's hard. Finger pointing's easy.
Any response yet, Jeff?
We just launched it yesterday. We did the press conference at 2:30. I personally have not had any interaction yet this morning with anyone. It doesn't surprise me. I've had conversations over the past week with members of the administration and council. Okay. So I've had a chance to talk to 4 or 5 people and kind of really explain the frustrations. And everyone is empathetic. And some people are super mad, and some people are a little bit defensive. I understand it. It's human nature. I am trying to be the grown-up in the room to say, this is not for political posturing. It isn't for any kind of a power play. It's not for shaming. It's just for getting to yes.
Yeah.
In my orientation, when I bring new employees in, I give a slideshow, talk about our history and everything, and I give a few basic principles. Learning how to tell the truth, doing the right thing, getting to yes. And getting to yes is the ability that regardless of the challenges, and you and I are on opposing sides, somewhere in the middle there's a yes. And this is, just like the teenager who wants to take the car out and stay out past curfew, there's a negotiation there of some sort to keep mom and dad and teenager together while still both parties getting what they want.
How much do you feel this is a financial and economic problem? I think it requires economics to solve it.
It's a huge economic problem, but there are paths for that. There are paths. But I don't know that all of the parties that could open those paths up are at the table.
You see paths that literally could fund what is needed?
Well, I know that there's all sorts of ARPA money out there, and I don't understand how the city-county, I've seen the arguments this past week about city-county and the money already expended, not enough towards infrastructure. And I heard the mayor's press conference yesterday where he made it clear that the majority of the cities was placed towards that. Amount of money is great, and it should be used to be able to match up to the state. I don't know that that's happening. The state, I understand, has made an offer, but then if I talk to some city folks, they say no, the state hasn't made an offer yet. So I don't quite know where the answer is.
Should we talk to senator and rep?
I think what we should all do, and interesting for you to keep deep diving on your show, and for all of your listeners, there are folks on this that are listening right now that are politically connected to one of those 3 levels of government: state, county, city. Reach out to your contact and ask them why we can't move forward. If you belong to an organization that is impacted by this in the city of Jackson, thrilled that the Mississippi Association of Educators came out at the same time as us yesterday. I know that there is another major group that sent me a note this morning and said, we're coming up with a position paper tonight. We're going to have a board meeting, and we're going to put any organization that can put pen to paper and write a letter to say this must stop. I think if we just really start banding together and say enough is enough, it's the old network. I'm mad as hell. I don't want to take it anymore. Yeah. We're mad at the problem, so tell us where the failure point is. What is stopping us from solving this? Because other cities in this nation have done the same. Why are we unable to? And if it's a city or a county or a state or a combination of failures, let's just map that out and be honest about it. And part of being vulnerable and part of disclosure is that you can find out that there are weaknesses and there are problems, and then you have to be accountable for that. And I think that's the political side of this that's difficult for a lot of parties.
Yeah. Sometimes from a political perspective, as you know, it's admitting there's a problem and acknowledging there's a problem is often not only is it the first step, it's the most difficult obstacle than solving the problem.
So I don't drink. I stopped drinking 25 years ago. And I'm in the recovery community, and I see a lot of folks that come to the realization that they need to acknowledge that there's a problem that's something they can't do, and the whole concept of recovery is that we ask for a higher power to be able to enter our lives and remove the defects that we have that make us nutty, and that is exactly
kind of what we got going on.
We
here.
need a big AA program.
Totally agree. You're right. I mean, it's the same approach, the same concept. It applies.
It's 12 steps. 12 steps to fresh water. I think I'm going to start a branding on this.
I like that. Jeff.
It has been a pleasure to be here, sir.
Jeff, appreciate you coming in. We got to keep working on this.
Yeah, we will.
And I know you've been a fantastic voice and leader on this issue. And we'll do what we can.
Thanks. Any restaurant you can dine in Jackson that is showing that bottled water and showing that boiled stuff, please support them. They need you more than ever.
Hear you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Jeff. Talk soon. We'll be right back on Midday. Stay with us.